Hi, everyone. Welcome back to another Mosaic Society podcast episode. I'm Roseberry.
I'm
I'm
T. Marie. Hi.
I'm Shreya. Hi.
Today, we have a not unique, it's not that unique, but a unique form of a podcast structure. We've done it before with anti-Blackness and K-pop, but basically, I'm just going to present something to Shreya and T, and then throughout the presentation, I'll have some questions, we'll talk about it, so on and so forth. Today's topic is dun, 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 the sociology and politics behind awards. Now, I have a lot of information. Here's the quick overview. Why is it not pressing? Period. So I'll have an overview, and then there are five sections and then a conclusion. But the way it's going to work is I'll have a question to start out, and then I'll give you the overview and awards, and then a question, and then politics of voting, representation and inclusion, question, and then economic stakes, global and local politics, question, conclusion, question. Make sense?
Mm,
Yes.
So it's like I'll talk for a bit, and then I'll have a question based off of like what I'm saying. And then we have our
okay.
segment, of course.
Yes.
When you hear the word award, what's the first image or feeling that comes to mind? Take your also y'all can take your time. We can edit the silence out. But when you hear the word award, what's the first image or feeling that comes to
Uh, Funnily enough, I have it already. A man wearing, or a woman, basically a person, right? Man, woman, person wearing a black coat sort of thing, like one of those graduation gowns with a hat and holding a
mind?
nice certificate, smiling for the audience.
Hmm. Why is that? What do you think
I
is the
do.
reason that's what you associate with awards?
Maybe that's what I associate with awards personally.
I see a trophy, shaking someone's hand, and then turning and facing a crowd, flashing lights, applause, cheers, and then a feeling of accomplishment. That's what comes to mind when I
Okay.
think of award.
Mm.
Interesting. For me, when I first came up with this question, I was like, how do I feel? What do I think? And when I think of awards, I think of fancy dresses, fancy lighting, fancy everything, and then some type of trophy that's handed off. That's all I could think of is like this, oh, what fancy dress would I wear to this award? Kind of like trying to pop out. Okay, so we all had fairly, I would say, surface level, I guess, feelings or images of when it comes to awards. Like, there's not much depth to that. It's just a matter of like, oh, you get something, you're accomplished. Oh, you're in front of someone, you're shaking someone's hand. Like, that's what an award is. However, awards, hold on, next. So, because we talked about like the surface level, like those are our surface level answers of like, oh, this is what we think of when we think of awards. And I think that's very common. But awards aren't just shiny trophies. They're more so like cultural megaphones. They tell the world what counts as good. They can transform a career overnight, and then they even play into the image of a nation's self-image. And we're talking about awards on a global scale or like on a national scale, not necessarily your own hometown middle school award, but these same sociology theories can be applied to those as well, but on the big like Emmy, Oscar, Grammy type level. A lot of times, winning an Oscar can push an actor into Hollywood's A-list. A Grammy can define a musician's legacy, but the awards are never necessarily neutral. They're shaped by power, politics, and a lot of social trends. Sometimes they're also like these magnets for public outrage. There's these moments, and it's not just about who won, they're about what culture chooses to be elevated. And sometimes, if one person wins over another, it's as if one culture is being minimized over the other. But we'll dive into that more. Awards, you can kind of think of awards like social contracts with a little glitter in them, like some gold. It's very similar to the concept of money. Their value isn't necessarily in the trophy themselves, but in the collective agreement that it means something. The Oscars are prestigious because the industry and the press and the public all agree that the Oscars are prestigious, not because the trophy itself has some magical powers. Some examples to just bring up when we're thinking about awards. Beyonce losing album of the year at the 2015 Grammys. She lost it to Bex, I believe. I do not know who Bex is. When I did my research, I was like, I don't even know what album that is. But that was a lot of public outrage there. It was the album, I don't remember her album title, but it was the one with Drunken Love in it. Um, and then another one was Drunken Love and Lemonade,
I don't think
because
so, actually. It's the
she
one
lost
with black
Lemonade
and
to
pink.
Adele.
It's black
Yes,
and then pink. Yeah, I don't know what
and it
that's
has
called, actually.
EXO. EXO is
Yeah.
also on there. Pretty Hurts on there. Pretty Hurts is such a good song. But she lost Lemonade to Adele, which was another like what? But Beyonce has historically and iconically lost album of the year, year after year, um, which we can touch on later.
Until now.
Uh,
I'm sorry.
until now, rightfully deserved though. Selma, I don't know if you guys have seen Selma. It's a movie about Martin Luther King and the
So good.
march.
So good.
Such a good movie, right? And it was critically acclaimed. I remember hearing so much about it in high school, but then when the Oscars came, they were barely nominated for anything. And there was a lot of public outrage, and people were using the hashtag Oscars so white, which is calling out the lack of representation and inclusion when it comes to the voting body, which we'll talk about too. And then BTS sweeping the fan voted Billboard Awards due to mobilized online fandom. See, we've talked about this before and how like the Grammys, they were worried. Was it Grammys? They were worried that somehow fans manipulated the voting for BTS, so they changed the rules when BTS got nominated. But I did want to include this because BTS Army, like we said, is scary, and they're able to mobilize online and to get them to win certain things, specifically fan voted awards, which we'll talk about next. Boards as social institutions. All right, we're moving from the overview into specific categories. So in sociology, awards are a form of symbolic capital. It's something you gain. It's a kind of cultural currency that opens doors, it legitimizes creators, and then it cements reputations in. They help write the official history, quote unquote, the official history of what will be remembered as great art. So you think about it, like you're always going to remember, oh, not always, you can look it up, but like in 2016, I don't know, Adele won Album of the Year, but you don't remember who else was nominated. So these awards definitely play a role in what is remembered and what's forgotten. This process, it's called a canon formation. Okay, it's deciding what gets preserved in cultural memory. Think of like a canon event. We've been using that a lot in social media, I feel. I'm pretty sure. But think of it that way. And there's different types of awards as well. Okay, there's four different types. First, you have the peer voted ones. They're like the Oscars or the Emmys where insiders vote on their peers. This, I wouldn't say like they're experts, but there's like actors can join the guild, the Academy Guild, and for the Oscars, and then they all decide to vote on a specific winner for each of the categories. They vote for the nominees and then the winners. The next type is fan voted ones like the AMAs, think Kids' Choice Awards as well, where popularity determines the winner. Then you have metric-based awards like billboards, where the data, like sales and streams, are the deciding factor. And then lastly, you have jury curated awards like Sundance, where it's just a small panel of experts who deliberate and then they decide on who wins. Okay, there's a sociologist. His name is Pierre Bourdieu. I did look up the pronunciation. I just can't fully, it's not cemented in my brain. And he's the one who came up with cultural capital, this idea of being legitimized and getting granted access and building your reputation based off of these awards. It's like a form of currency, basically. I think that's it I have for this one. Some example, Coda winning Best Picture at the 2022 Oscars, despite having a very small theoretical footprint. Despite sweeping the Oscars in 2020, which really opened the door for non-English films. And then Billie Eilish Grammy sweep in 2020. This is one I remember a lot because Billie Eilish winning all those Grammys in 2020 kind of legitimized and cemented the fact that pop is what pop music is and what pop music looks like changes. Think of pop music 10 years ago when it was like Kesha and T-Pain, you have some Katy Perry, even Taylor Swift. Like Taylor Swift's pop music then and now looks different. Before it was more so upbeat, club type, let's have fun with our friends, pop music, and now they really value the introspective aspect. Think Billie Eilish, Olivia Rodrigo, SZA. Like these are all artists who are more so are considered pop artists now who may not have been considered that before because the standards have changed, if that makes sense. Um, so then we're here to our second question. How do you think awards shape what we value in society? I talked about how awards are cultural megaphones, right? They legitimize some people, they push others into their career, they change their standard based off how you're voting and who's voting, I guess, like the representation, which we'll talk about later, of course. But how do you think awards shape what we value as a society if we keep changing the standard?
I think as a society, we value like the best, if that makes sense. Like it's something that is like set as like a marker where it's like that's what you strive for. Even like I'm thinking about like school days where you would have like an honors day, and then I remember people
Hmm.
who were on the honor roll would get up to go on stage, and like your parents would come and you'd have your little certificate. And I remember like the few students who were in my class who maybe didn't get something, and I remember kind of feeling like, oh wow, this like really like makes it very obvious, like the ones who are on honor roll and the ones who aren't. And I felt like I would be a little uncomfortable and kind of like feel bad. But it's like it's interesting because it's like, yeah, we got good grades, like okay, yeah, honor roll and everything. But I just felt like that was like a standard that was kind of created. And I think that's just something that like you're programmed to always strive for, to be the
Hmm.
best, to achieve and get this accolade and this award, even from like the cum laude, summa cum laude, stuff like that. Like there's always like a standard that has like prestige that is always like looked upon as that's what you should strive for, and that's what
Mm.
you should want to achieve during your time wherever you are. um but yeah, I do think that while that is a personal standard that I kind of like wanted in my life, obviously, there's like different people who are just like good at different things. And I think when you have like awards, it's kind of like cookie cutter of what one standard should be,
Hmm.
but there's different standards for a lot of different things. um so yeah, I think not so much that it's a bad thing, but we only have certain things cut out as
Hmm.
what should be awarded, you know what I mean? And
Yeah.
I think that
And I
creates
don't
like a very narrow view. Go ahead.
I don't think it's you personally only. I think it's a societal thing, at least within America, where it's like winning these awards, I said it, but it legitimizes you. It's like, yeah, I
Mm-hmm.
am good at school. I am good at track. Like I got first place. Oh, I am an amazing musician. I'm a pop star. I won all these Grammys. Like I do think it sets a standard that if you have awards, then you're legitimate. But if you don't, you're still working to be legitimate. You're not as successful. Even though a lot of people like again, Beyonce didn't win album of the year for years, but she's still a very successful artist. So
Mm-hmm.
then the question is like, oh, do we really need awards to be legitimize an individual? But what about you, Shreya?
You guys both touched on points that I want to say. One word that stood out to me is legitimacy. I look at awards as what we value as society shapes what gets awarded, and what gets awarded reinforces what we value as society. So it basically legitimizes a standard that we set for people,
Hmm.
or by associating prestige, accomplishment, accolades with that particular status. In the sense that it sets a standard, but it's like a reinforcing cycle. That's how I view it. What we view as a society shapes what gets awarded, and what gets awarded basically reinforces the entire thing again and again. So I think
Hmm.
it's just a cog there.
I think that's a good point. I hadn't necessarily worded it that way, but it is a cycle. It's not necessarily a linear thing, like, oh, we value this, this is what it awarded, but it goes back into like constantly changing the standard. Good point. Look at you guys, geniuses, sociologists, basically. Moving on, let's talk about the politics of voting and campaigning. This one I kind of really condensed because there's so much into it. But if you have questions, please let me know. So behind every award win, it's a whole political machine. You have the voting bodies, whether they're just industry peers, critics, or fans. Remember the different types of awards and how the voting bodies work. They each bring their own music taste, film taste, whatever, musical taste when it comes to Broadway. And then they have their own biases, they have blind spots, right? And then you have this campaign, right? That's the voting body. Then you have this campaign, and it's a multi-million-dollar game. So studios are running these ads, you know, think about all the ads you see when you have a new movie coming out and they're marketing it in a certain way. They host private screenings, they wine and dine voters, they push a narrative as to why their film or their album matters, why it's a contender for a Grammy, an Oscar, a Tony, an Emmy. So there are strategic plays that also come into effect with this after you have voting bodies and campaigns. There's also this aspect of submitting an actor as a supporting role for better odds, right? Or marketing um, a genre film as a prestigious drama, changing that the way the words you're using basically to add a certain connotation to it. Then you also have the money, the PR muscle, and then the insider relationships, which often weigh more heavily than the pure artistic merit, right? I don't know if you guys have ever heard the saying, it's all about the connections, right? The
Mhm.
people that you can talk to, the people that you can influence based off of personal connections that you have to vote a certain way. So, in other words, it's not just who you are, but how well you can work the system. How can you work the voting bodies, the campaign? How can you strategically place your film, your TV show, your album, whatever it is? How can you place it in strategic categories so you optimize your chance of winning? I put Wicked here as the picture because it reminded me that I don't know why this stood out to me, however many months ago it was, but they submitted, instead of submitting both of them as um, best actresses, they made Cynthia Erivo Best Actress and then Ariana Grande Supporting Actress. And then for this next Wicked movie, the For Good movie that's coming out in like a couple months, Ariana Grande is submitted as the Best Actress, and then Cynthia Erivo is supposed to be submitted as the Supporting Actress. And I found it interesting because they're both the main actresses. The whole entire thing is about both of them. But by putting them in two different categories, it provides a better opportunity for them to win more awards, which legitimizes their performances and also the movies and all the things that were invested into it. Think about like if a streaming company is involved or the director, um, even the marketing team. So I thought that was really interesting.
Hmm.
Every award has power plays, so I kind of put this in to break it down based off of what I said in the last slide about politics and voting and all the things behind it. Think of it this way, for every award, you have the gatekeepers, which are the voting bodies. They basically decide what's in and what's out, who's getting nominated, who's winning. Even with fan-based awards, think of it as, oh, which fandom, like the gatekeepers, I'm gonna keep using Army just because Army is the most powerful fandom that I have ever seen. Okay. But the gatekeepers, like for example, Army, they have a really strong influence as to who gets accepted. Even when BTS isn't necessarily nominated, I've seen Army be like, okay, well, there's these three K-pop groups nominated. Let's all vote for XG because they have this one connection to BTS. Like these gatekeepers who are the voting bodies get to decide whose voices are even shown. Okay. There's influencers. Those are the critics, the PR firms, the marketers. Those are the ones whining and dining. They're pushing the ads. They're creating this narrative to show why it's important. And then you have the stakeholders. And the stakeholders are basically everyone who has put some type of risk into the movie, the film, the album, the TV show, whatever it is. They're the studios, the labels, streaming platforms, um, directors, the actors themselves. These are all stakeholders who are advocating for them to win. So those are the three gatekeepers when you start thinking about the politics of voting and campaign. So much more difficult than that, or more complicated than that, but that's the best way. From this perspective, though, from the inside, it's less about the merit and more so a political election, right? The timing, the PR narratives, the category manipulation. It's a matter of the politics and the system that you're playing in more than the artistic quality itself, which then puts into question, are wards a legitimate way of legitimizing someone or something? Okay, next. Some examples, Harvey Weinstein, but he had a very aggressive Oscar campaigns in the 1990s, early 2000s. Um, for example, like his movie Shakespeare in Love won over Saving Private Ryan. I've never heard of Shakespeare in Love, but I have heard of Saving Private Ryan and I've seen it, and it's a very influential and impactful movie about wartime for Americans, right? But it didn't win because Harvey Weinstein had a very aggressive Oscar campaign. Um, Andrea Riseborough, she had a surprise Oscar nomination a couple years ago. I can't remember the movie, but people were surprised because it didn't necessarily have that much foot traffic with it. But apparently, from what I read, she had like a really global celebrity campaign that was pushing it, and so she got nominated. So people were like,
Mm.
"What? Like, why are you not? What's going on? Like, how is she in here?"
Why are
But
you here?
like, why are you here? But she did a really good job playing with the system and like pushing herself and advocating from the celebrity perspective more so than the public audience. She kind of, I guess, played the game in a smart way because instead of going the traditional marketing way, she just went directly to the source. And then, like I said, studios shifting actors into supporting characters to increase win odds like I explained earlier. Next, representation and inclusion in politics. Awards also reflect and sometimes resist social change, right? So historically, women, people of color, non-English speakers, and then certain genres, think like horror, comedy, they've been underrepresented um, or outright kind of ignored within the award space. Milestones like first, right? Think Parasite, Moonlight, them taking home these wins, these huge wins, they're breakthroughs, but it also highlights how rare these moments still are. You know, we're still celebrating the first non-English movie, right? Or the first Korean movie to win Best Picture. Moonlight, beautiful movie that really depicts it's a black gay man, right? A young
Hmm.
black gay man, and depicts his life story and that winning Big Picture. It's amazing, right? But these are the first type of stories that we're seeing that are getting recognition and quote being legitimized. I think there's a difference between performative diversity, so like sprinkling in a few diverse nominees, and then structural change, like diversifying the voting body or changing how categories are defined. You know, there's niche awards, think BET Awards, NAACP Image Awards, GLAAD, the media awards. They've emerged out of an alternative because power centers and like the mainstream audience or mainstream awards aren't recognizing them. So you have these milestones that are celebrated and that are win, but again, they remind us that it's really rare to see this form of equity and respect given to underrepresented and marginalized communities. And then having these specialty awards or these very niche awards as alternative systems for these marginalized communities to show, like, hey, we are powerful, we are strong, and you guys aren't recognizing the work that we do. So, hmm, I think I have a question about that later, but I can't remember. If not, I'm going to ask two questions. Prep. So, I didn't know this. Halle Berry became the first and is still the only Black woman to win Best Actress, and that was in 2002. I had no idea whatsoever. I looked it up. I saw a couple comments she had made on it, and she was basically like, "It's really lonely, and it speaks volumes as to how we're treated and respected." And I can imagine that that does seem pretty lonely. But you know how many Black actresses there's been? Like how many Black actresses have been the main lead and they're not winning. Like I think that's crazy. I
That's
don't know about y'all. I don't,
surprising.
right? I was really surprised. I just felt like there were so many great movies that had come out with leads, and I'm just like, so they're just being nominated and not supported. Is that because the movie wasn't good? Is that because of the voting body involved? What is it? Are they not playing to the system well enough? What's going on? And then I already brought up Moonlight winning Best Picture, which was kind of sad because they won Best Picture, but it was overshadowed by the mix up when they announced that La La Land won, but it was actually
Yeah.
Moonlight. Like everyone's more so talking about, oh my God, how could you make that mistake? Ha ha, that's so funny. Instead of talking about Moonlight and this big change that happened, this monumental moment that was happening in history. And then Parasite winning Best Picture really just opened the door for a lot of non-English speaking movies. And also, I guess, for respect to the Korean film industry as well. Because I didn't watch Parasite, it's a horror thing. I don't do horror, y'all know that. But I heard it was really good and highly, highly critically acclaimed. So, my
Parasite was
question.
horror?
It seemed thriller horror. I didn't touch it. I asked a
There's no horror
friend
in it.
for you. I asked a friend and they were like, you shouldn't watch it. I was like, okay, bet, not watching it. Anyway, My question to you guys now is, do you think increasing diversity in award winners changes how audiences see the industry, right? So like we're talking about how awards shape society and they reflect. They're kind of like mirrors. I say that later. They're kind of like mirrors. They reflect like what we value and what we think is important. But do you think if we're increasing the diversity within award winners, right? Having more so like Black, Latino, Asian, all these gay, like all these different identities, if they're winning more, is that going to help change how the audience sees the industry, do you think? There's an argument that could be made for yes and no.
Hence, yes, like you and me, people who are viewing it, I think if they're seeing more people winning, I think it will. But ultimately, the structure as a whole, if you still have the same people in there, because at the end of the day, they're the ones that built the system. They still have control. They could just be throwing a bone. You know, I mean, it doesn't. I don't know if that really reflects like genuine like attempts to see diverse media and really understand it and see what commentary it's talking about, how masterfully it captures certain things. But I
Mm-hmm.
do think there is like something to be said about like the perception from the masses. I think it does mean something to people when they see more representation, when they see um different people winning awards and everything, especially like I'm thinking about so many different like speeches alone, like Halle Berry's speech, Chadwick Boseman's speech. I don't remember what the award was, but like those speeches, like they're powerful because they get to also be put on a platform where they can speak further about the discrepancies and about like the
Mm-hmm.
unfairness of it all. So I think yeah, to the masses, yes, the structure itself is still the same though.
Fair. That's a good distinction when he says audience. Like what type of audience are we talking
It might give some legitimacy. For example, let's say the audience as a whole loved a movie, which doesn't fit the usual format or template of movies that win Oscar awards, whether it be movies that are not primarily spoken in English or are produced and basically a product of another country altogether, a different culture altogether. And if the audience loves it and they see that winning an award, then it increases the legitimacy of the award show itself, the entire program in the eyes of the audience.
about?
That I do see that happening, but I don't know whether it changes mm, how the audience sees the industry in itself. If suppose it's not popular or anything of that sort. Maybe for people, I agree with what he said. I agree with what he said that, but I also feel that if suppose you see, let's say we spoke about, you said something about Halle Berry being the only black woman to have ever won the award. I found that shocking. I had no
Same,
idea because
same.
I've seen so many amazing performances by black artists, and I was shocked. I was like, really? So maybe if they increased or they showed more diversity or more fairness with the way they evaluated and they voted on it, then yes, I think it would increase the legitimacy in the eyes of the audience and see that there's more diversity and there's more, yeah, that it's not just playing favorites. But in the end of the day, they don't change the way the system works. The people who are voting, you're still playing to the same system to win that award. A Korean movie has to be very palatable to an American audience or to the Western audience to be able to win an award at the Oscars. I don't see that. It's not about appreciating the art form of making movies in itself. It's about I like this movie. It's a great story. You said it in a way that I understand it, and you said it in a way that I appreciate art, or I think art should be, and therefore it must.
Mm-hmm.
And unless you're able to widen your perspective and see that that your definition of movies is not the only definition to exist, that probably will continue to exist.
And I also want to add, like, in terms of like how I've seen like a rise in like people not feeling as though awards truly like depict like what is like the best because we're aware of the fact that there's all this politics that
Mm-hmm.
happen in the background. I want to use the example of Taraji P. Henson when she won her Oscar for Best Supporting. I think it was like back in '09 or something, and how she has since come forward and said it didn't really do much for my career. Like that's like the
Yeah.
standard when you get certain awards. It's supposed to elevate you because it is supposed to be this thing that legitimizes you and puts you at this certain status. But for Taraji to be saying pretty much that like Hollywood didn't really respond at all. Like they went quiet, and she said actually it wasn't until like Tyler Perry reached out to her about like a project that she kind of like started, getting moves again and everything. And I think that's quite sad because I think it just goes to prove the whole idea of like diversity and award winners. If the system's not meant if the system's not meant to work for you, it's not going to work for you. So, yeah.
That's a good point. I remember that. That was she when it was a speech when she was talking about like living in the car with his son, right?
I saw it when she was talking about an interview while promoting, I think, Hidden Figures, so I'm not sure.
I meant the award,
Oh.
not necessarily when she said that. But I do remember her kind of calling out the system, specifically when it came to pay,
Mhm.
like equal pay for as a black woman.
Yeah.
But great answers, guys. Anything else? Any thoughts, comments, concerns, questions?
I did have a question. I do remember a black actress winning an Oscar. Or was she not for Best Actress? I think it was.
From what I saw, it said Halle Bailey was the only, or is the first and the only black woman to win Best Actress. I'm sure there's black women who have won Oscars, but not
Uh-huh.
necessarily Best Actress.
I was talking about Lupita Nyong'o.
Nyong'o,
I'm
yeah.
so sorry for pronouncing it wrong. Yeah, but she was supporting actress. That makes sense. Okay, all right. Because I was like, wait a minute.
I have to double check. I literally double checked this yesterday, but I'm gonna double check
Mhm.
again because now I'm getting
No,
scared.
I just googled it. Best supporting actress for 12 Years a Slave. So
And Zoe Saldana has gotten something, but that was Best Supporting as well. It wasn't Best Actress.
yeah.
Yeah,
Do
Halle
you
Bailey
think
is the only.
do you think that might have something to do with, even though their screen time is equivalent to that of his lead of the main character, but because they want to win more awards and they feel that it's more likely that this person will win in the supporting actor category and therefore they put them there? Is that
It
possible?
could be. It could be. That's the thing. Like after doing all this research, first my head hurts. Second, there's no one reason why someone wins. There's all these different factors that go into it. And maybe they are putting them in supporting actress because they want them to get that one and they want them to have more, like a higher chance of winning and a higher chance of being, quote, legitimized. That could be why. Um, but I'm not sure. I really am not. I think the voting body is a huge reason as to why, because the voting body is also who allows people to be nominated. They vote twice. It's who gets nominated and then who wins. So something within that voting body is also influencing the lack of representation when it comes to Black women winning. Okay, the economic stakes. I love this picture. For those who are listening and not watching, it's basically like a wrestling match, but all the wrestlers are different streaming platforms like Netflix, Hulu, Disney Plus, Max, all that. Anyway,
That's an
so the
awesome picture. Where
economic
do you get it?
Google, you can find
Amazing.
anything on Google. I think it was the Atlantic specifically, like an article that they had written, but I'd have to double check. Um, they have a lot of articles. Anyway, back to economic stakes. So we kind of touched on this when T you brought up Taraji P. Henson, and she was like, it didn't really do anything for my career. Like I didn't have as many opportunities that you're supposed to get. Because an award win isn't necessarily just an ego boost, it's also a business asset. They call it the award bump. So it's like films that win Oscars often see a huge surge in box office wins and streaming numbers. Musicians who win Grammys, they get more radio play and higher booking fees. And then think of authors who win literary prizes, right? They see sales skyrocketing. Studios and recording labels, they bank on these boosts when they decide what to fund next. So in the streaming era, awards have also become marketing tools. Netflix, Apple TV, Amazon Prime, they invest heavily in award campaigns because the prestige of winning an award sells subscriptions. It increases revenue. Once you see the dollar sign that's attached to an award, I think it starts to become difficult to purely see winning an award as artistic recognition, right? It's moving into more so, okay, I want to increase my revenue. Let's put this huge campaign out there. Let's try and boost sales and justify the masses. And it's at this point, once I got to this point in the research, I was like, it really is a matter of like who has the most money. Because Netflix can have this huge campaign advocating for what's a Netflix movie? or a TV show. Okay, Netflix can have a huge campaign advocating for Money Heist, right? It's a TV series. But then you have these indie films or short films, TV shows that don't necessarily have as much money and can't advocate it the way that Netflix can. And so that's one category within the power players that that small film, that small team doesn't have, making lowering their chances of winning, if that makes sense. So this award bump is what you're looking for. Next, some examples: the King's Speech, the box office doubled after their Oscar wins. Adele's album 21, her sales skyrocketed post Grammys. And then, okay, I did look up this pronunciation too. Bong Joon-ho, I think. His Parasite, Parasite the movie, it added $50 million in tickets after they won the Oscars. So, first off, $50 million. You know what I could do with $50 million? That's crazy. But you can just see, just winning these awards, it gives you that award bump. Not always. I think there's a lot of factors in play, but it legitimizes you as this strong contender in the field, whatever field that is. And then by legitimizing you, it's also increasing your revenue and your chances at doing more, getting more support, whatever that looks like. Boom. And I also remember Adele's 21, it did skyrocket, 1000%. Because I started listening to Adele after she won those Grammys. And I was like, well, who is this?
Hello.
That was a good one.
Sorry.
Moving into the last category, this is global and local politics. Okay. So I felt like this needed to be its own category because this concept of, we talked about it in our other podcast about K-pop, three perspectives on K-pop. I'm not sure if that's going to be out before or after this, but we do talk
Before.
about it.
It's one episode
Before? Okay.
before.
Okay, so the episode before this, you'll hear it. The three different perspectives on K-pop. We talked about if K-pop should be recognized by the Western music industry and like win these Western awards. And so I felt like this needed to be its own category because we have normalized the fact that the Grammys, Emmys, Oscars, Tonys within America is kind of the standard and the best. And then you have all these subcategories of awards within specific nations, specific fields that are kind of like stepping stones into reaching the Emmys, Oscars, Grammys. Awards, again, they're political on a global stage. National awards like France, they have the César's Award. Spain has the Goya's Awards. India has a Filmfare Awards. They're almost like a form of cultural diplomacy, right? They project a certain image of the nation to the world, but within the field that they're in. International film festivals like Sundance, Cannes, or Toronto, they serve as these launching pads where films can generate critical buzz before a more wider release. But global recognition is still faces barriers. Like for non-English films, they're often siloed into best international feature instead of competing head to head for best picture. And then regional art can get overshadowed by Hollywood's global marketing machine, right? This starts to raise questions about cultural dominance and whose stories gets the world's attention, whose stories or whose cultures matter more in this sense when it comes to awards. Um, I also want to note that local, regional, genre-specific awards, they often reflect battles over language, regional pride, and then industry traditions. It's less of a interpersonal dynamic and more of an intergroup dynamic and more of an intra-group. Like within the Latin community, you're trying to see what form of Latin music stands out or is more impressive or can appeal almost to the West more, you know? So you start to have, you're not only competing on this global scale of trying to get to the Emmys, Oscars, Tonys within America, but within your own community, you're trying to kind of fight for each other for regional pride and kind of being labeled as the best within your country, which comes with a lot of psychological things as well that I did not dive into, but I'm sure it's a whole other podcast. Um,
Oh, can I add something there? It's really interesting. Oh no, or maybe you can go to your examples and then I can say something. Sorry. Go ahead. Go ahead.
okay, you're good. So some examples: India's submission of Lagan to the Oscars in 2022 or 2000. I said national pride at stake, like being nominated. It was like, oh my God, India's represented. But as a whole, I think it was just a beautiful moment for India to be recognized on such a global stage for the work that they had done. You see Cannes Palme d'Or wins, The Square Shoplifter, that's shifting a film's global profile. And then the Korean awards were rallying behind Parasite before it even went global, right? So Korea specifically and the different awards that Parasite won within its country, again, it's like a stepping stone into America's version of like awards and that being the best and getting the most recognition. How might local communities, right, or nations define or definition of success differ from the global stage? Do you think global awards can ever fairly recognize local stories? Because if we're talking about which cultures are recognized, which cultures are elevated versus which ones aren't, it's a matter of us deciding what it means to have cultural relevance and what it means to be successful within your culture, within your field when it comes to music, film. Even if you're representing your culture, they can be like, oh, that's not good enough, right? So how are these two definitions of success on the global stage differing? And then can they ever fairly recognize these local national stories everywhere so they can all compete for best picture instead of all competing for best international?
I think I can give the example of India because I know about India. Um, in India, success really depends on the artist and the. So India is not homogeneous in the sense that we have different industries there. We have Tamil, we have Telugu. These are languages. Kannada, Hindi, and for a very long time, Hindi dominated what was represented as Indian. And the reality is, each locality, each region has its own own metric of measuring success.
Hmm.
Earlier, and I think the disruption happens when it comes to global recognition. The disruption happens is because the way we make movies is different, and it can be very jarring to someone who isn't used to that kind of cinema.
Hmm.
Because you'll be having a serious scene, let's say there's a war effort, and then out of nowhere people are singing. Like, is this a musical? Is this a serious movie? We don't get what's happening. I get it. But because I grew up with it, I understand it. It doesn't stick out to me anymore. So a local community's definition of success would therefore be we don't think movies that are good in India, as in Indians predominantly think of movies would be good for an international audience as well. That's not how we view it. There are some actors, for example, the film fair, all movies that are considered palatable to an Indian taste that showcase good storytelling, unique storytelling, should win awards. It's rigged. Like, film fair is Bikau. Bikau means it's sold. Nobody thinks it's legitimate anymore. But the idea is when it was operating functionally properly, it was movies that resonated with the audience and were unique that were given awards. We didn't necessarily think that this should be represented at at the international at an international stage. We had something called as art house cinema that would go that route, and now it's become more mainstream where movies which don't have a lot of singing and dancing they get nominated. This Lagan is a movie produced by Amir Khan. He stars and produces that movie. Amir Khan is known for his Oscar craze. He does not believe the Indian award system is legitimate or fair, and therefore he thinks the only legitimate award is the Oscar. So all his movies are Oscar. He makes these. Some people say, I don't think so, but some people say he makes movies with that in mind that
Hmm.
it's a unique story. I like the story. I'm committed to it, and therefore I'm going to make it. But I also feel it's Oscar worthy. Can global awards ever fairly recognize local stories? Yes, if you include people, a sizable number of people from different countries, hear their voice, be open to listening to different interpretations, and yes, I think that would make it easier. If you don't have those people in the boardroom, or give them enough voice, or have people with an open mind and with actual diversity in their film viewing experience, then it will never change, right? Because you only have that
Hmm.
set normative way of looking at a good movie.
I agree with that. I think I do agree that you only think one way if you only have a certain population or demographic in the room.
Hmm.
Um, in terms of the first question, I'll speak kind of as an outsider. I'm gonna bring up K-pop again. But when I think about like the definition of success from a global stage might have looked like prior to like maybe a few years ago, like second generation of K-pop would sometimes cross into America and everything and do
Hmm.
X, Y, and Z collaborations and all that jazz, but it didn't necessarily hit the mainstream for real. I feel like Gangnam Style was the first kind of like Korean song that was like, oh yeah, Psy's the artist for this, and the music video is cool, and hey, I can do the whoop whoop whoop, like you know what I mean. Like that was the first thing that I feel like we were actually kind of tapped into it.
Yeah.
Um, so I think the level of success that Psy had, and then BTS coming in after, and now you see way more K-pop groups over here. I feel like that trajectory wasn't set yet, so I don't. I would wonder if that was even something that K-pop groups prior to that immersion into mainstream Western
Hmm.
culture would have even thought about. I'm not even sure if that's something they would have subscribed to or considered because it wasn't something that happened regularly. I feel like
Hmm.
probably their awards, like Mama MMA, probably were like the, oh, I won a Mama, like I won MMA. Like that was maybe, I'm speculating again, I'm an outsider, but I wonder if that was probably what they saw as like, that's a mark of success because people, BTS was the first group to perform at an American music show. It just wasn't something that, it wasn't a room that K pop groups and K pop culture had been featured on before. So I
Hmm.
feel like it's like a new reality of like, oh yeah, that's success going to like the West and everything. But um, yeah.
You guys had brought up like this idea of, oh, I don't think the goal is like to adhere or to appeal to the West, but then you each in your own ways were like, oh, well, now BTS is the first to perform, right? Like they've broken through into the West. And then Shreya, you brought up Lagan and like how people think that all his movies are now catered to the West in this like Oscar worthy performance. It makes me come think of the question that of again the psychological aspect, which I probably should have dived into now because I keep having questions about it. But what does it do psychologically to an individual like BTS or you said he was an actor and a producer, actor and
Mm,
director of
Produced.
L- producer of Lagan. What does it do to individuals when it's like, oh, I've reached this new level of success that's rare. Most people don't reach it. And then afterwards, trying to build back up to that success and maintaining that success, what does it do to them mentally? But then also, what does it do to a nation as well? Like when you think about K-pop, now it's integrated into the West, I think, not necessarily on the like celebrity Hollywood A-list type level, but when it comes down to it, they've had so much success here that now it's something we pay attention to. So what does that do mentally to how they're marketing now? Because I do think there's a lot more groups marketing to the West when it comes to K-pop. There's a lot more sounds when you compare fourth gen and second gen, sounds are completely different because sounds are marketed to the West now, I think. So like the psychological implications of, oh, I'm finally recognized, but I don't have the support to stay recognized, you know?
mm.
Does that make
Um,
sense?
Hmm. I don't think I have an answer, but it makes sense.
I don't think I have an answer either, but it was the
the,
thought.
the only thing that comes to my mind, okay, first I have to clarify, Amir Khan makes wonderful movies, and I think his USP is the fact that he picks stories for what they are stories and not whether they meet the checkpoints of mainstream success, which is how a lot of people pick movies in India or used to pick movies. So I didn't give
Yeah.
him enough credit. The man makes incredible movies, and in that ambition, if he gets legitimacy, he wants it from the Oscar. So that's just how I view it. It's not that he's obsessed with it, but the only person that comes to my mind when you say that, what does it do to a person's head? Oh, who's that guy? Leonardo DiCaprio.
Mm.
I know he's not international in the sense that he's not an international actor. He's in Hollywood, but um, I don't know how far that's true. But a lot of people are saying the man had to eat meat to get an Oscar.
I remember what people were saying.
It's like he wanted an Oscar so bad he ate raw meat to get it.
Yeah.
So I don't know why that image keeps coming to my head from that movie. But he eats raw
But
meat.
but even bringing that up, although he's not international, I think it speaks to how hard people in the West are working for these awards. And so
Mm-hmm.
it adds another layer of complexity to international artists who are also working hard, but they don't necessarily understand the system or have the support or have the connections to navigate the system, the political campaigns in this sense, with awards, the stakeholders, the voting bodies. Like they don't necessarily have that support and connections in order to win, right? If Leonardo took forever for him to get an Oscar, and
Yeah.
he deserved an Oscar for, there's a movie he's in, the What's Eating Gilbert Grape. He was so good in that. He deserved an Oscar. Beyonce not winning album of the year. Like they're working so hard towards this and they're here in the system. They have those connections. But then you have these international stars who are also working hard for this recognition that is new to them, but they don't have the connections as well. It's like they're closed out and not being recognized, like, oh, we don't want to help you yet. How are you helping us right now? We don't want to help you yet. Let's see what you can bring, what you can offer. And I'm not saying they're like drooling over it, like, oh, accept me, accept me. I'm not saying that, but there is something to be said about the prestige that we've collectively as a society decided the Oscars and the Emmys and the Tonys and the Grammys have. There's a legitimacy there. There's a prestige there that we've decided is there. And so there's something to be said when artists, musically or as actors, they want that. It makes sense. It's justified. It's just difficult.
So I don't know about the movies just yet because I think India's won a few categories. I don't think it's ever come near the best picture category, but there were a few. There was one for independent movie, short movie, best documentary. It's won a few of those awards. But I can talk about music. Original soundtrack, original song category. The worst songs of that particular music producer artist has created have won Oscars, and I'm like, why? Like, really, why? I am so shocked. A.R. Rahman, amazing artist. What does he win an Oscar for? That stupid song, Jai Ho.
I really like that song.
No, Jai Ho is a good song. I'm not denying that, but that man has made magic. It was his earlier music. You should listen to his first album, soundtrack from '92. Amazing, pure gold. But it suits an Indian sensibility.
Hmm.
I think what happens is some people, when they get lost in that entire haze of, oh, I want international recognition, they try to start making music that suits a different palette and lose that essence. One, you lose it creatively in the sense that you're making movies for it to make a to pass over a poignant message or some deeper message, and it just comes out being hollow, like pseudo intellectual stuff.
Hmm.
And that's one route people take. The other one is where, yeah, that is one route. That's one route that I don't like. The other is you continue making movies, staying true to your creative ethos, and you make movies that resonate with you, or make music that resonates with you, and you think strike the chord, and recognition will come as it does. The other thing is they do this weird thing about um, collaborating with Hollywood stuff to be able to get that recognition. Because if it's purely Indian, you won't. So you take that
Yeah,
step ahead and you make soundtracks for American movies. You make soundtracks for other English language movies, or you for a series, and then you say, "Oh, so from here I'll jump ahead." So yeah, uh,
fair though.
yeah, I think it's fine. I think everybody does their own thing.
It's hard to get in. But yeah, I'm gonna move on to the conclusion because we still have our segment. Yeah. Good conversation, good conversation, good conversation, good conversation. That someone
Jai
should make
Ho
that into a
crap.
song. So closing reflections. So at the end of the day, after everything I've talked about, awards can either act as mirrors reflecting the taste, values, and priorities of their times, or they can act as molds. They're actively shaping those values by deciding what's worth celebrating. Shreya, you brought it up, like it's a cycle. They're both working with each other, the values of society and then the awards. Whether the current system can be fixed, that depends on whether we think it's broken in the first place, right? Like we're calling out all these things, but maybe people are like, no, it's fine. I want to keep having these awards. I don't care. I don't think anything really needs to be fixed right now. It's not hurting anybody. Some see awards as outdated gatekeeping. Others see it as like a necessary form of recognition and legitimization. But looking forward, awards might look radically different in 20 years, especially thinking of like streaming dominance, like that could shift the power base. And then you're thinking of AI generated media, and those are contenders. I'm pretty sure an AI film just won Sundance or Cannes. I saw pictures of it, and it's basically the way they did it is this girl, I guess like a ballerina, a dancer of some sort. She's like posing in certain ways, leg out, leg up, hands up, bent over, this, and they used AI to turn her into a bird. It's honestly mind blowing, and it truly is. When I was looking at it, I was like, this is crazy. Like this is where we're at right now. I can only imagine again 20 years from now. And then also thinking like fan influence through social media. I would love to see the statistics of with like the Kids Choice Awards or the MMAs, the AMAs before social media, before things like TikTok and Instagram got more popular. What has social media done to voting bodies and the way that it affects who wins? Um, but truly, let's think about this 20 years from now. Will we still care? Are we still going to care about these awards and like legitimizing people? I feel like we're consistently moving more progressively to the aspect of like individuality and focusing in on yourself and who you are and what you represent. So maybe we won't care about these awards as much. You brought it up, Shreya. You said in India there's like an award where it used to mean something and now people are like, oh, it's rigged, like you just buy it, you know? Maybe that's how we're gonna feel in 20 years from now. But as of now, it still seems to be a mirror of what we value and then mold what we value in the future. So let's see what the next 20 years bring. I wanted to conclude with um, three different point of views based off of everything I've shared with you guys. And these are my point of views and through my perspective. I think there's the optimistic point of view where awards are spotlights of excellence and they preserve cultural history and they encourage people to be more innovative and challenge themselves and push themselves. So it can almost be this very positive force that's pushing people to be better, right? And recognizing their hard work. But then there's the more critical view that I think it's kind of seen like awards reinforce existing hierarchies and they privilege the insider and they turn art into competition instead. And so that more critical view is like, well, these awards aren't necessarily awards that are reflective of someone's talent or the artistic style of it. It's more so a place of political gain within the Hollywood, like huge Hollywood machine. And then the cynical view, but I think, from my perspective, I think this is the most accurate view. I think that awards are basically marketing events that are disguised as merit evaluations, right? So the artistry itself is real, but the results are more so strategic. You're marketing, even if you're nominated, you're still getting this attention of like, oh, you got nominated for an Oscar. Well, let me go see the film, right? And it's the stakeholders' ways of pushing out their film. Not everyone who's nominated feels like they're gonna win, right? Some people are like, oh, I got nominated, that's great. I got lucky, and then you use that as a marketing event to push whatever film, TV show, musical, or album song that's out there to get your name out there. But the results itself, they're very strategic. And so there's this artistic side of it where it's like, oh, you did a really good job, like get recognition from it. But then the results aspect being more strategic, like, oh, why do we want Parasite to win? What will that say for the world? Why do we want Adele to win? What will that say for the world? So there's still artistry a part of the award system and like recognizing talent, but the results of that isn't necessarily the most authentic thing. It's really strategic. So the closing question, because I was thinking about this, if awards disappeared tomorrow, how would art and entertainment change, right? So we started off with like how we feel about awards, and we all said like, oh, it's a place you go, you get recognition for something, you're applauded. That's what we see. You're shaking someone's hand. And then we just went through like five different sections within awards and the political machine and the sociology behind it, and how winning isn't necessarily just a reflection of someone's artistic ability. So if we got rid of it, right, there was no more awards, how do you feel like the art and entertainment would change? Do you think people would still be striving for this standard? Who sets the standard? Where does that standard come from now? Like, think about it. We got rid of all awards and we start brand new tomorrow.
So I have a clarifying question. A couple of them. One, if awards go away, do critics still exist?
That's for you to decide.
Okay. Assuming that it's just the awards, all awards we're talking about, not just the ones that you
Awards.
mentioned here, all.
Hmm.
Okay. Then I think the metrics that measure success would change if awards don't exist anymore.
Hmm.
Motivators and standards to measure success would change in the sense that maybe it'll be okay. A lot of people make movies saying that I don't care if I make the big numbers, I want to say the story. I want the
Mm,
story to reach people, and and the creators get a kick out of, critical acclaim and
yeah,
earlier awards. Maybe something else would come up, something would change according those along those lines.
maybe.
I agree
Maybe.
with everything Shreya said. I would also like to add that I feel like you would see way more um, pieces of art that are considered experimental, and maybe that would just become normal. Like I feel like people wouldn't
Mm,
follow the molds that tend to get them uh, recognized on certain levels. I feel like people would just explore, let me do this form or let me try doing this. I feel like people would think more outside the box because there wouldn't be um the expectation of, oh, this is too weird, this is too outlandish. No, people would just be able to,
mm,
I want to do this, let me explore that. And I feel like it would be very
Hmm.
interesting.
hmm.
Just a contrary opinion, not because I disagree with you, but because I see it can go the other way as well. A lot of independent movies, small movies that are made, come from independent finances who see that okay, if you don't make money, you'll at least get me awards and critical acclaim, so I can say we made a good movie, we won this award.
Mm.
So will that be what is the word when I say discourage something? Would that be deterrent? Will the absence of awards become a deterrent to the production of small movies or those that don't measure up to what people like in general? Because
Actually gonna be the. Oh, sorry. I thought you were done. Go ahead.
no, because box office would then be one of the primary metrics, right? Yeah.
Hmm.
What were you saying, Rose?
Was gonna be what I brought up, the economic aspect of it. If awards got away, there'd be. I want to say for at least a year, it would be really difficult to understand how the finance or the economy within the entertainment industry is working. There's gonna be so much change because they're not necessarily dependent on awards, but awards are like data metrics basically, right? The awards help them understand where to invest their money. The awards help them win money back, right? That they've invested. So I feel like there would be different metrics like y'all were talking about, what's successful. You'd see new things that are at some points you're like, oh, right now we're like, oh, this is unique, but it's not Oscar worthy. But then if there's no awards, then it's like, oh, this is beautiful. I really like seeing this. But the economic aspect of it, of the entertainment industry, would be drastically different. And I think for about a year or so, they would be trying to find footing as to like, okay, how do we now decide where to invest in? What's the standard as to what's the best practices when it comes to investing in a movie, an artist, musical, stuff like that. So that's what I was going to bring up because I think it'd be fine. We'll be like, oh, cool, now we can see everything. But the economic aspect would be like, it would take a big hit, I think.
I mean, we could always see anything and everything. It's just, I guess, the cost benefit analysis of making a movie or let's say funding a movie. That would change. Maybe. I don't know.
But like when I say see anything, I mean like as from an audience perspective, like from the public basically, not necessarily the insiders. Not that the public doesn't want to see anything, but the more that it's critically acclaimed, the more you hear about it, the more likely you're going to go watch it. And so now it's like you have to actually put in the research yourself to be like, oh, this movie seems interested. Oh, I'm gonna go watch it instead of just being like, okay, I heard that these five movies are like the best movies and they're being nominated, and you go see it. Um,
Okay.
that's what I mean
Yeah.
by that, not necessarily like the insiders. But that's it for me. Thanks. I hope you
Sounds
guys enjoyed
good.
yourself. I'm
Me,
passing it
it's
on to Shreya.
me. I'll do it. Okay. Okay. So for our segment today, we're going to be listing out our top snubs or what we think were the top snubs under four different categories. Not all of us have all four different categories, but they are the Emmys, the Grammys, the Oscars, and the Tony Awards. So who wants to go first?
So the snub that I'm actually going to be talking about is from this upcoming Emmy Awards that's taking place on September 14th. And so the show that I'm looking at is Andor. It is a part of the Star Wars franchise, and it's a show that covers season 1 and season 2 cover the 5 years right up until the film Rogue One, which leads directly into A New Hope. And so it was nominated for 14 Emmys for things like Outstanding Drama Series. They got something for Outstanding Fantasy and Sci-Fi, Original Music, Guest Actor. But a lot of the online discourse that's happening right now is a lot of people are disappointed because Andor was excluded from the major acting categories in the awards. And so they had like two main characters, Cassian Andor and Mon Mothma, who they're the actors for both amazing. Like it's great acting happened in Andor. I watched it. I'm blown away. I think it's some of the best TV that I've watched in a very long time. And so a lot of people, including the creator, showrunner, and executive producer for Andor, Tony Gilroy, he even spoke extensively about the snub. And I have a few quotes that he said where he was more so expressing the disappointment towards Genevieve O'Reilly, who played Mon Mothma. And he said, pretty much like when actors have to think like, when are you going to get a part like this again? When are you going to get the opportunity to do something like this, and are you ever going to have this kind of work? And it's disappointing when you don't get recognition for roles that really feel like they're like, wow, this is a cultural moment, and just the disappointment that comes with it. And he even said, I would trade a lot away to have her there. So people are having a lot of disappointment towards Diego Luna and Genevieve O'Reilly for not getting nominated. And I think it's valid. I think when you look at the backing of like awards, I think sci-fi is one of those genres where it's a little bit hard for them to kind of like break through and for people to really like give it the respect. But there's a lot of social commentary within Andor. I really want Shrey and Rose to watch it. I'm really gonna fight to have them. I want to be right there next to them, but it's so good. And I think it speaks to so many things that are reflected in society today. And the acting performances of so many different people were so amazing. And so I think a lot of people are questioning why they were excluded from acting categories. Not to say anything about the people who were nominated, because I haven't watched those shows, so it's not fair for me to speak on them. But their inclusion, I feel like a lot of people felt like should have happened.
Okay, we will watch Andor. Is that it?
Speak for yourself. I will definitely think about it though.
I will watch Andor. Andor, whatever that is. I hope it's not gory. I don't like gore. No. Okay. Rose, do you have one?
I guess I with the last this past Tony's, I don't know what it was. Okay, I really don't. But the last Tony's, there was a few things that happened that were weird, I would
Mm-hmm.
say. I'm trying to Google Nicole Schwarzenegger's or Shirts, what's her name? Scherzinger? Um, the Pussycat Doll girl.
I've been calling her Nicole S since I listened to I'm telling you to loosen up my buttons. So yeah, I don't know. I don't know.
Okay, sorry, that's funny. Um, but Nicole S from Pussycat Dolls, she was nominated this year for Best Actress or Main Actress, I think they call it, like leading role. It's not the same as Oscars. I think it's leading role for the Tonys. And then Audrey McDonald was nominated as well for her revival of Gypsy. She plays Rose. But Nicole is the lead in Sunset Boulevard, right? And I'm bringing this up because Audrey McDonald, first off, demolished Rose and Gypsy. Like I didn't go see it myself, but I definitely sat down in front of YouTube and like looked up a bunch of clips. And she did such a good job. And I think she's historically not necessarily been awarded for the hard work that she does. Um, but Nicole's S, she's the one who won this year. And I think it was really interesting and it speaks volumes because she was getting a lot of good praise, right? People were like, oh, wow, this is really good. I'm surprised. Like, this is actually, she's doing a good job. And then it came out that she was, I don't know if she was pro-Israel. She had supported Israel in some way, something. I don't remember the specifics, but then people were like, ew, not watching it, can't stand it. And there was even a moment where she was booed, right? Like people were booing her. And then for her to turn around and win, I feel like it speaks a lot to the political aspect of awards and like who the voting body is and who's on the inside and the campaigns and all that. Because not to say that someone's own personal stances on certain things and personal beliefs should stop them from winning an award if the talent's there, but I do think this reinforces the idea of like separating the actor from the work, right? The artist from the song. And that's a debate that we can go on and on about and their specifics. But for her to win, I feel like reinforces this value that we don't necessarily care to stand up for what we believe in or stand up for other people. And I feel like musical theater has always been a place where we stand up for those who are marginalized, right? They've always stood up, even thinking of like Rent. Rent was revolutionary. It talked about the LGBTQ community. It talked about HIV and AIDS. It talked about capitalism. It talked about all these things that we struggle with as marginalized communities. And then for someone to win who is supporting something that's against marginalized communities, I think that speaks volumes for whoever voted for her to win. So, yeah, that's mine. It's a snub because I do think Audrey McDonald did a great job. I'm sure Nicole S did a good job too, but it just reinforces this value of, oh, we're moving away from caring about what I think Broadway stands for, which is standing up for the marginalized, the silence. So I don't know if I explained that well enough. I wasn't really prepared for that, but that's what came to mind.
But you explained that pretty well. Thank you, both of you. Okay, so for me, I chose Oscar because out of all the awards that we've discussed today that you explained today, I only followed the Oscars because I don't follow any of the other ones, especially the ones about music and Broadway. I never, until I came here, watching a Broadway show was not something that was on the cards for me, except for those that were recorded and put up somewhere. So I never really found the appeal as such. Always wanted to though. So I don't want to talk about something that I didn't have any idea about. I didn't understand the cultural connotation of it. So I'm like, okay, snub because Google tells me so. But for the Oscars, I might have a little bit more of a take. Anyway, my choice was Shawshank Redemption. Oscars. You're on mute.
Sorry, I said such a good movie.
Love that movie. Honestly, love that movie. And in 1990, I'm not sure if it was 94 or 95, there was a lot of competition between, well, it didn't win an Oscar for a lot of reasons. One, it was running against Forrest Gump, which won all the awards. And there were a few other things that actually, interestingly enough, um, reflect what we discussed today, what you told us today, Rose, about how awards are decided and who wins an award. For example, one, it was against stronger competition. Pulp
Hmm.
Fiction was also nominated the same year, so I guess it was just bad luck, but it didn't win any awards, which is what is funny. Shawshank Redemption has won no awards as such, as far as I know. So other reasons that initially it didn't have a very good box office run. It didn't do very well, and perhaps that didn't give it the boost that it needed to be noticed by the Academy. Some say. The other thing is that it goes against what was popular with the audience at that time. So at that time, apparently, crime, punishment was the main focus of the people because even it coincided with the passing of this act called the Violent Crime Control and Law Enforcement Act. So the movie spoke about themes like redemption and prison and lives of prisoners. And this was, I guess, it was overshadowed by the public's focus on which was on something else. This is another theory. And finally, they talk about their marketing strategy. They say that the movie underplayed the role of Stephen King in the movie, basically in the production and in development of the screenplay, which is why people were upset with it and they
Hmm.
didn't like the title. The Shawshank Redemption title was apparently meh, but I loved the movie. It was amazing. But these were some of the reasons attributed to it. I love the movie. Yeah.
Well, I love the movie too. It's honestly iconic. But I just looked it up because I was like, I don't think it was Israel. Her support, Nicole S was, it was revealed that she had some support for Donald Trump. And
Ah,
that's why people were like upset and they booed her and all that. It wasn't like, I mean, Israel Donald Trump, but that's why she was like booed and all that.
Mm.
And Donald Trump, historically speaking, has not supported marginalized communities. Anyway, I just wanted to clarify that because I was like, I think I'm wrong, and I was.
So that's it. Shawshank Redemption was one of the biggest movies that I think was snubbed a little by the Oscars, who showed no foresight.
Sometimes it just takes a while for people to see the value
Yeah.
in a movie too.
Yeah, that's true.
But also it was against Forrest Gump, and Forrest Gump is such a big movie, right?
Sounds like
I
it was a stacked year.
yeah. It
Pulp
was like
Fiction, yeah.
a lot of really great movies that year, but not to win anything was a bit of a shocker in my opinion. You could
Hmm.
have distributed the awards a little bit, but
I didn't really care for Forrest Gump, but
I haven't watched the movie. But I know it's
I
a big
watched it when I was
movie.
young. Yeah,
It's
everyone loves
long.
it. I don't think I finished it when I was young. I think I had like 30 minutes or something left, and I was like, I don't really like this right now. But let me rewatch it now that I'm older and see.
Apparently, it's a good one. I watched The Shawshank Redemption when I was 17. There were power cuts in India, so we didn't have TV. My laptop was out of charge, but my phone was still working. I just gotten one of those new phones. I mean, the phones that we have now, basically. I was using the old Nokia phone, the one with the dial pad. I just shifted to a new phone, and I was like, ah! And my uncle sent me the movie, and I watched it on my phone. And I think I watched it throughout because I was watching it on my phone because of the medium. But I ended up loving the movie. Yeah, it's a good one. I'm gonna watch it again when I wake up. Anyway, do you guys have another one?
No, that was a
Okay.
lot.
Okay, so this has been a great discussion on awards and how the values we attach to awards reflects and molds society. And I think we should keep the conversation going in the comments. So that's
Yeah.
all for this week. Yeah. Let's talk, guys. Talk in the comments. So
Yeah.
that's all for this week. Until next time,
Stay curious.
stay true.
And stay unapologetically you. Bye.
Bye.